Hello, I'm Mike Jones from FCSI's Foodservice Consultant Magazine. Welcome to this new episode in the panel series that are hosted here at the FoodSpace headquarters in Boise, Idaho. This particular episode in the series is supported by Marra Forni and will address how the highest standards in back-of-house design, the latest innovation, and the application of best practices are all able to achieve perfect results in terms of cooking consistency for customers. So I have a fantastic panel assembled here today. Before we get into the discussions, let's have them introduce themselves. Brenden, let's start with you first, please.
Thank you, Mike. Brenden Wright, owner and founder of Visual Conquest, based out of Florida, South Florida. And my company, we specialize in VR simulation within the industry.
Great stuff, Brenden. Thank you. Joshua?
Joshua Murray. I work at FoodSpace here in Boise, Idaho. FCSI associate.
Fantastic. And thank you for hosting today, Joshua. And Bob?
Hello, I'm Bob Hart. I'm district manager for Appétit Management Company based out of Palo Alto, California.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bob. And Robert?
Hello, I'm Robert Bratton with Marra Forni. I'm a proud CIA graduate. I've spent time with Rationale, HMS Host, developing local, national, regional accounts, delivering a new concept every 3 days. Recently, I spent a number of years with Earnox, and today we're here proudly representing Marra Forni in brick oven cooking and not just pizza.
Fantastic. Thank you, Robert, and thank you indeed to Marra Forni for their support for this particular episode.
It's our pleasure.
Bob, let's start with you first, please. Can you help set the scene here? Can you describe the biggest challenges that operators are currently facing with regards to achieving that consistency of a cooked product? What are the pain points and what are the impacts and implications that this can bring along with it?
I think some of the top challenges we face right now in our industry is labor, right? How do you find consistent, skilled labor in an area that's, or especially where I'm at in Northern California, where it's too expensive to live, right? So I think this is where some of this new technology is going to come into play. Also, kitchens that are not new and modern, right? A lot of our kitchens are older. So how do we get a consistent product with aging equipment and infrastructure?
Fantastic. Thank you, Bob. Great summation. Robert, let's bring you in here. What impact, from your perspective, does consistency or better consistency have on things like portion control? What impact does it have on food waste as well? And also, how can improved consistency help save money, save energy, and save the planet as well for clients?
Well, first of all, consistency is why your customers are coming to your establishment. Whether it's a Tuesday or a Saturday, they're looking for that craveable moment. And the technology and the equipment needs to be able to produce it in a manner that becomes consistent, whether it's recovery to put in the next portion, easier to use for labor, maybe having an auto on and auto off so that we don't have a staff member that doesn't come in late so that the oven can't come on. But by having better controls on your cost and your labor and your waste, you're able to impact your bottom line at a menu by menu option.
Right.
In the heat of the shift, if there's a pizza, for example, that is dropped or broken or burnt, that typically sends every order back. Right. So now it's about the consistency of the cooking, the type of equipment, materials that they're doing to make it easy to have the product coming out, which gives the operator measurable moments to be able to find and manage his margins.
Great answer there. Thank you, Robert. Let's bring in our consultants here as well to get their perspective. Brenden, from your point of view, when those kind of problems that Bob highlighted at the start arise in the back of house, what impact does that have on the rest of an operation in the kitchen? How does it impact the efficiency of service? Ultimately, how does the customer suffer if that kind of consistency isn't there?
When these mistakes start to take place, it creates bottlenecks throughout the entire line. Using manual pieces of equipment, you're relying on your staff and your workers to be able to produce that food in a very efficient and consistent way. And when that doesn't take place, something else gets affected by it. Whether that be food that gets overcooked and has to get recooked again. It could be holding up other food that may be waiting on that, affecting the customer and the guests at that point too as well, in terms of how they get their food, when they get their food, their experience altogether. And in this day and age, when technology to be able to talk about your experiences is so easy nowadays, it can have a big impact on the food service operation itself too as well.
Absolutely. Joshua, from your perspective, give us the view from a kind of designer's point of view as well. How can inconsistency in cooking products cause everything else in the service line to unravel? How does it impact on things like flow of an operation?
Right. So, from a design side, it's more about like, if one choke point fails, then it's going to affect every other station down the line, right? If my salad doesn't get out in time, then my steak can't get out at the same time. So, really bringing in the ability to flow in harmony, right? With precision all the way down the line, eliminating these choke points. It allows you to get the food out more efficiently, and then of course, then your guest is happier.
Great answer, thank you, Joshua. Robert, how or why is cooking consistency one of the hardest things for an equipment manufacturer to achieve, and how do you manage that?
Well, there's a lot of inefficiencies between site conditions, power loads, labor, staffing conditions, where they are in the country. And what we look to do in Marra Forni is through technology, through high refractory stone that retain the heat, by balancing the airflow and enabling the labor to really become harmonized with the equipment. In pizza, for example, we see a lot of spinning, turning, and moving of the pizzas. With the better airflow and the better controls, we need to launch the pizza, allow it to cook, and then remove the pizza. In doing that, we're opening and closing the door much less, so we're not using up that energy, as well as we're having the product cooked a little bit faster to give you that consistent product, so that each and every one is the same prospect and aspect.
Great answer, Robert. Thank you. Bob, in order for that innovation to work effectively, the equipment needs to be looked after properly. How can things like poor maintenance of equipment, from an operator's point of view, cause inconsistencies in things like cooking temperatures, food safety? How do you mitigate against that from an operator's perspective?
Preventative maintenance is crucial in any kitchen. We run high volume kitchen feeding thousands of people a day. And if the equipment's not maintained, then you're constantly running into what these guys were talking about, but we're making 100 portions at a time. You can't have another piece of equipment there ready for that if this equipment goes down. So it's crucial to our success.
Absolutely. One aspect, I suppose, to prevent that, Brenden, is good training and education in terms of the staff and the employees that are going to be using this. So how do you get consistency of training? How do you, as a consultant, impart that information that you have to train, you have to keep staff kind of aware of changes in products, and also how to use it effectively and safely, and aware of how to look after it as well?
Training is so critical. And as Bob mentioned about the labor shortages that are out there, how do you deal with continued employees that are coming through your establishment on a regular basis? Not to mention the age of employees too as well that food service is working with, and the experience with the younger generation. How often have they worked in these establishments too as well? So really taking a look at an organization, what are your training platforms? What kind of SOPs do you have in place? Is it just following somebody on site when you start your first day, or are there other advancements that you're taking in your training programs that can really get them caught up to speed? Not just on the operations and the cooking side, but you mentioned maintenance too as well, which comes to the responsibilities of manufacturers also out there. What tools are being used? Are we just relying on manuals that were, printed 10 years ago and still relying on those to, learn about how we need to keep up with our equipment and how to maintain them? Or you're looking at new technology that can be brought in to help modernize some of these training platforms and help educate and teach in a much faster and more efficient way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes for consultants as well, Joshua. So why is it important to have events like we're hosting here at Pars and Paella for consultants to actually test equipment, to get their hands on it, to get up close and personal with it, and to play with it? Why does that matter? Why does it help?
Absolutely. I've been out of the cooking game for a few years now, right? And so when these new pieces of technology come out, without me being able to get my hands on it and be able to play with it, I can't actually, I can specify a piece of equipment and put it in there, but I don't know its true power until I get, together with Robert, right? And he says, hey, look at this, this oven can do these amazing things. And I'm like, I had no idea that it could do that without actually, with these hands-on and these face-to-face meetings, right? And so it's great that I can not only specify the equipment, but I can now tell my client why I specified that equipment, right? Like I can say, hey, look, you told me you needed this done, and that's why I put this piece of equipment in
And
there.
as the client, that gives me great confidence because he knows the equipment. He's a subject matter expert. He's touched it. He's played with it. We've come to a great place like this to have the experience.
Quite, yeah. And Robert, what about from your point of view? Why is it useful to get direct feedback from the consultants here, and to have, and also how do you garner that insight? How do you kind of take that feedback and filter that into new products that you're innovating?
Absolutely. I mean, events like these and larger trade shows put us in front of customers because we need that face-to-face connection. Food is something that we all eat and we all see and eat with our eyes, but it's nice to be able to actually eat and taste the product. And that's what the conversation does. It enables us to understand what feedback, what challenges, what innovations maybe they're looking for to improve their business or to have a more consistent product. It's more and more increased today because we're so disconnected. We need to build trust. We need to strengthen our relationships, keep us grounded in what's reality. What is really happening out in the world? Are we making dough or do we need to buy it other? But then what do we need to do to enact that dough again to make that pizza consistent for that customer? Those are those challenges that make it beneficial because we then can taste and see it. And that gives us a lot more connection.
Absolutely.
And what Robert and Bob are saying is, for me, it's an imperative. Like when I put a piece of equipment into a project, it's important for me to hear 6 months down the line how that equipment is performing, right? Because it may not function the way that I intended it to, or it doesn't quite meet what they thought it would, right? And so by getting that feedback from them, I can better serve my clients as an FCSI member, right?
Yeah, quite. Go, Brenden.
And I think understanding your staff too as well and what they're capable of accomplishing at the operation. Are they equipped? Do they have experience to handle equipment that is more manual, or does it need to be more automated? To get that consistency, if you don't have the kind of skill there to produce the food that you want.
Okay, Robert.
I think that staffing, if they can handle a little bit more because of the versatility of the brick oven, now they can prepare things more than just pizza. For instance, the examples that we have here, to give a different menu balance, maybe a different menu fatigue that the customers may be looking for.
Yeah, great answer. Brenden, let's look a little bit about how this impacts things like kitchen design. You're an expert in VR simulation. How does having that ingrained awareness of new cooking products, new equipment that's on the market, how does it help you to design better? And how is also the kind of design technology that you're working on, how is that shaping the kitchens of the future?
Well, taking the specs from the manufacturers, right? Understanding now with this new technology, with the refractory stones that you have, for example, how is it increasing my throughput with a piece of equipment? And then taking those metrics and what we do when we break it down to a granular level, we take the data and the information. If I'm able to increase my throughput and we're able to produce X amounts, of items and food products out of one piece of equipment from one employee, then I can understand what the other team members and the other staff members are supposed to be doing. So having that information from the manufacturers is so critical when making these decisions to determine, do I go with something more manual? Maybe my staff can't and isn't capable of handling that. Let's go with something more automated. That's also going to help free up maybe the number of staff members that I need to as well. So that information it's so important to get because it goes into really every decision that you make when considering what's going to go on that line.
Absolutely. Joshua, do you agree with that? And how do you see kitchen design changing?
I do. And as we shift towards the future, we see more modular layouts. You see more adaptability. We want to be able to change the lines in and out really quickly, as menus change and menus develop, especially for, clients who work in business and industry, right? Like they feed the same people 200 some days a year, right? And their menu is ever rotating, right? Because they're going to get tired of the same food every day, burgers and fries. So as we see these modular layouts and we get feedback from the clients, we were able to lay out the kitchen and develop solutions for them that can fit their needs.
Mm-hmm. Bob, we know it's tough out there for clients at the moment, for owner-operators. Investing in the latest high-quality cooking equipment, it's a major decision for an operator to make. why is it invariably worth it? Why does it ultimately, what does the customer ultimately benefit if operators make that decision?
For the customers, they get a more consistent product, right? You don't know if an employee is going to be there every day, so you've got to have a piece of equipment, the most modern equipment, to be able to have anybody be able to use it, right? An oven like this, for example, is pretty ready to go for anybody at any skill level. Also bringing the new technology in where our chefs can utilize some of this other equipment that can do many things. It's just not one piece of equipment. You can set up your equipment on your phone these days, right? And for the younger generation, that makes sense. I like a fryer without technology, but somebody likes to be able to program it on their phone, right? And be able to roast and smoke and steam all at once.
Yep.
You can get an amazing product using amazing technology. That's going to get a better quality product. It's going to be more efficient, and in the long run, it'll be cheaper for our clients and customers.
Absolutely. Robert, amazing technology is one thing, but customers, we know, also respond to things like the theatre of the back of house and being able to see chefs performing their craft and beautiful pizza ovens and things like that. Why is that trend set to remain, and why is it important to hospitality ultimately?
It's in many cases, the pizza oven isn't just the equipment, it's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Let's say wood-fired pizza is the name, and that wood-fired is what's drawing them in from the parking lot, from the street side, from the neighborhood area. That aroma, that fire, that craft that's happening is the theater that they're looking for. They like the fact when food is happening in front of them. Many cuisines do that. Operators love it because it becomes a brand builder. It's a sales driver. Wood-fired could add a couple of dollars to the menu for the excitement. Creating that open kitchen with maybe a bar sit around it, kind of like we're sitting, and you're watching the process and interacting with the chefs. That creates an excitement where the customers want to come back, right? It creates that consistency, and it doesn't just happen to have with pizza. It could be your breakfast. It could be your cafe. As we said, the oven is pretty much ready to go, depending on the style that you're looking for. And it gives you the opportunity to thrive or crave training or education, but it's about what the customers are looking for, because that's who's paying your checks.
Go ahead, Joshua.
I mean, I think, Robert proves a good point. It's like cooking is still an art, right? Mm-hmm. And as a designer, it's my job to not only take that into consideration, for the client, mm-hmm. For the customers, as well as, for everyone involved, right? So it's still an art, but I still need to have people be able to see it, right? Like, we're so used to the separation of back of house, front of house, but the more we can blend that, where they can see the action, right? They get excitement, they get to see their food being prepared. And let's not forget, like, at the end of the day, it's about the plate of food for the customer. Right. And seeing the smile on their face.
Absolutely. Joshua, let's stay with you. Let's talk about how a lot of kitchens are going increasingly electric, towards all electric kitchens. How does that impact the whole cooking consistency piece? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages?
So, I mean, of course, energy efficiency, right? Electric holds temperatures better. There are some downsides, obviously. You can't sear steak as well on electric. You need that flame. You need that charbroil. And so, while there's downsides, there's also a lot of upsides, right? Like, I mean, you get the energy efficiency, we can conserve energy. I'm all myself about going green, right? And so the more I can lessen my carbon footprint, the better. As we see more and more, the trend is to go more electric. And in fact, the last couple I've designed have been all electric kitchens, right? And it's a great tool, but it does have downsides. And again, it's about how you use them, about how you train your staff, what your guests want to see, and that's, like, again, back to, like, why we bring these people together is because, this electric deck oven can do many things that I didn't know it could do until Robert showed up, right?
Fantastic. Great answer. Thank you. Brenden, why would you say investing in technologies is so crucial for operators?
They're going to have to invest in either training or technology to be able to get the consistency that they want within their operation. I think inconsistency within operations is what's driving a lot of the technology that we're seeing now. Manufacturers that are working on programmable controls, to have that consistency, in there. It's being driven by much of this demand, and with labor shortages that we are having now, and the younger generation too as well. Is it going to drive even more and more innovation to come out to make food more consistent and coming out, like you see here, on a regular basis? But it's critical. The technology. You invest in equipment that can do the cooking for you, or invest in your people and your staff and your training programs that you have to be able to work on more manual pieces of equipment that can produce this food without the automation.
Excellent answer. Final question, if all of the panelists could answer this one, please, very broadly put, but what does the future look like for how cooking technology is going to continue to evolve and improve and ultimately achieve better consistency for customers? Robert, let's start with you, please.
We just talked about sensors. AI is certainly going to be a big part of it. And it's about creating that consistent, no matter who's running the line.
Yes.
And it may be the ovens that are different. It could be the traditional static deck where you have to move every pizza, or transitioning to a rotator, which is a round version of the conveyor, which is then one staff to put it in and take it out versus one in, one out. So we're looking at features of that nature. Operators means that they possibly could look at less deep training and faster onboarding, which will enable the chefs to look at the craveability and the repeatable results that they're looking for, because it's about the hospitality when we come in, from the front door to the back door, or from the back door to the front door, depending on, is it the guests or is it the groceries, because they both matter.
Excellent answer, Robert. Bob, same question.
Yes, for me, I think it's robotics. I think we're still in its infancy for how it can assist, but I think in the future that robotics will be able to help gain consistency. We'll be able to help reduce labor in a labor market that we're already short of.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Joshua, same question.
I really think we're moving towards, as has been mentioned, connected kitchens, right?
Yeah.
Where I can push recipes with my cell phone, right? And I can rely less on labor and staff and training. However, with that being said, I think also the future of training is in virtual reality, right? Like, not only can I put on the VR goggles and walk around the kitchen I'm going to be working in, I can, push a button and see how to operate that oven before I even set foot in the kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think, really the future is, robotics, virtual reality, and using all these pieces together. An oven that talks to the blast chiller, right? And then a blast chiller that pushes a text message to my phone saying, hey, look, it's chilled, it's ready to hit the freezer, right? Or it's Vaxulate. And all these things working together, to flow and floss seamlessly for a better experience for everyone.
Absolutely. And same to you, Brenden.
Yeah, and I think the employee is going to change over time too as well. As you start getting into robotics, as you start getting into automation, you're not going to need as many employees working, on the line before. Maybe you need to hire maintenance people and engineers that are part of your staff, because if that piece of equipment goes down and it's critical to the operation, you're not going to be able to produce food. So training is going to have to evolve along with the technology that comes along with it. And I think that staffing is going to have to evolve too as well, with new equipment and innovation that's going to be coming into the operations.
Excellent. Let's draw things to a close there. I'd like to thank my esteemed panel for being consistently superb. Brenden, Joshua, Bob, and Robert, thank you so much. Thank you to Marra Forni for their support in this episode, and thank you for watching.